Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. I'm your host, Brian Kohute from HJ Wealth Management. My co-host, Chuck Steege from SFG Investment Advisors, and our special guest, Sandy Borowsky from Starr Tours. We have a great show. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you, Chuck. How are you? How you
Brian?
been?
Nice to meet you.
So you have a specialty in your practice with executives around stock-based compensation. Can you tell a little viewers what that even means and what you guys do over there?
Absolutely. So what we do is we help senior level corporate executives navigate towards financial peace of mind. And specifically what we do is we help them with the setup and dealing with the complexities of their stock-based compensation. There's a whole plethora of forms of executive stock-based compensation, and this is really what we put our focus on.
Great. Give us some examples. You know, maybe some of the viewers are familiar with it. Most people probably heard of options, may not know what that means, or restricted stock. There's all kinds.
Sure. There's, as I mentioned, there's a plethora of choices, and most times for executives that are in the public space, they will have things like restricted stock or restricted stock units, or they will have options, as you mentioned, and those come in two flavors, either incentive stock options or non-qualified stock options. Performance awards have really come of age. Performance stock units, performance options, and then of course there are forms of deferred compensation. So there's a number of ways in which companies will put in place these plans to incent for performance, to attract and to get executives and employees aligned with the business's objective.
When do you get involved? Is it usually the employee that you're dealing with has these choices, or do you help them actually structure what kind of compensation may make sense given what they're trying to achieve?
Great question. And oftentimes the employees are coming to us because company comp committees will pretty much make the decision on these type of plans. They'll roll them out, and the executive is oftentimes very confused about how they actually work. So they'll come to us and say, like, as an example, a very large private company, it's got a lot of visibility in the marketplace. One of their senior programmers came to us and said, look, I've got these what look like incentive stock options. I don't know how they work. I don't know what the tax implications are on them. How do I deal with them? We also have been more recently expanding our scope where we are working now with executives in the private equity space, because we're helping them in terms of the design and the administration and the software solutions to help them manage their plans.
Chuck, this may be anecdotal, but I've seen a trend more towards restricted stock over options. Is that the trend, or is that for real, or is that my mind?
No, it's definitely a reality that we're seeing within the stock-based compensation arena. And it's really been driven by the accounting firms that have focused on trying to find a better way to expense the value of stock-based comp. It's been driven primarily by that, but we've also seen a move that direction away from options, because in the marketplace it was thought that, gee, if the value of stocks went up, it was just simply the result of market action, the appreciation of the stock price, and not necessarily so much because of performance. And so shareholders were kind of raising the question around the value of options. Were they actually helping to improve or augment performance? But there's definitely a move towards restricted stock for expensing purposes. And I think also it tends to provide a solution that's a little bit less volatile than options. It's a little bit more predictable when you can look 3 years out at a point of vesting with a restricted stock and know, okay, there's going to be some value there.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, all this comes with heavy tax planning. Do you try to get involved early with your clients and try to lay that out? God forbid they do something without asking.
The earlier the better,
right,
Brian.
So.
The earlier the better. So an example of that would be In the case of restricted stock, and we do work with a lot of private equity executives that are founders, and really the best time for tax strategy is at the time of grant, because at the time of grant, there was this little tool called an 83B election, where at the time of the grant, the recipient, the executive, the employee, decides they're going to include the value of that grant in their ordinary income. And so with the expectation that the stock price is going to continue to appreciate, so that then when the stock then vests, rather than having a larger exposure to ordinary income taxes, then they have exposure only on the value at grant. So that's a great little tool to help mitigate some of the tax impact. We're also seeing 83B does work with things like options, where there are oftentimes plans where an executive has the ability to exercise prior to vest. And ideally, if they exercise prior to vest, file that 83B, then they're once again mitigating some of the impact of the taxes.
Clearly it's complicated. They need to
Oh,
get
it
professional
absolutely
help,
is.
right? So get your advisors involved. If you have time for a question?
Absolutely.
A question came from Tim Grant from Wayne. Do you think the employment opportunities are going to continue to grow in the near future?
Well, it's certainly the big question. The Federal Reserve has a dual mandate, as everybody knows, and one is to try to manage inflation. The other is to try to achieve full employment. And where we're seeing at least the top line number of unemployment being 5.1%, we've seen that continue to go down. We aren't seeing as many people in the labor force, so the labor participation rate stays stubbornly low. But we are seeing job creation. It continues to be a gradual month in and month out progression. So we don't expect that there would be any change in terms of the trajectory of employment.
Good news, Tim. If you're looking for a job, there might be one coming up for you. So great answer. If you have a question, this is how you send it to Money Matters.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Welcome back. Now it's time for our special guest, Sandy Borowsky from Starr Tours. Sandy, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Thank you, Brian.
Tell us about Starr Tours. What do you guys do?
Well, Starr is a motor coach tour operator. And what that means is we own our own motor coaches for charter, but we also run tours, package tours for individuals and groups on those buses. So it separates us a little bit from everybody else because we have both facets of the business. We're planning vacations on one side, and then we're renting buses for everybody on the other side. Yeah.
So what are some of the services? So you can rent it out if you have a bachelor party?
Yes, bachelor party, but we'll require some kind of a monetary deposit because we want our bus coming back as nice as it is when it left and picked you up.
Fair enough.
We do a lot of school trips, a lot of religious groups charter our buses. We do a lot of casino trips. Weddings, corporate transfers, airport transfers, and then we have a lot of other tour operators that charter our buses as well. So those are the operators that don't own their own buses, and they could be based anywhere in the U.S., abroad. They have groups that travel into New York, Philly, or D.C. and need transportation. So those kind of groups will charter our buses as well. That's the charter side.
So yours is a third generation company, isn't it?
It is.
Tell us a little bit about the family, the culture, and what the focus has been.
Well, let's see. The business was started by my grandfather in 1947, and my grandfather brought in my father, his son-in-law, funny enough, and then subsequently his son to run the business in the late 60s. A few days after I was born, my grandfather passed away, and the business was run by my father and my uncle. My father and mother now own the business as my uncle has retired and sold his portion. So I am the only third generation in the business. From what I understand, less than 2% of family businesses even get to third generation.
Yeah.
Pressure, I feel
Yeah.
it. But as a quick aside, after I graduated from college, I went a totally different route. And I was living in the Midwest and then on the West Coast, and I was in a completely different corporate environment in retail. And my dad's company had a position open, and they hired a headhunter to fill that position. And the headhunter said, "Well, did you ask your daughter?" And he said, "Well, no, I didn't want to put the pressure on." And she said, "Well, can I ask your daughter?" Long story short, we had to pay that headhunter a finder's fee.
Yes.
And almost 20 years later, I'm still with the business.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah.
So where are most of the tours taking travelers? I mean, are these one way or are these round trip?
So good question. They're round trip vacations. They are package vacations. We leave from set locations throughout the Delaware Valley, Delaware County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia County, Bucks County, and then in New Jersey, Mercer County, Hunterdon County, and Camden County. So we have set locations that we pick up. We shuttle everybody into a hub, and then we go on vacation. For example, our most popular overnights are Cape Cod, Niagara Falls, Boston. We have a ton of people that love to see Savannah and Charleston. So those are our popular overnight trips. Our popular day trips are Broadway show packages. We've brought a ton of people to see the 9/11 Museum and Memorial in New York City. We go to Baltimore, Washington, D.C. We go to Lancaster for the shows. So it varies. We even have a 26-day cross-country trip.
Oh my God.
So
and you do all the planning for those trips?
Yes, so we do all the planning from start to finish. We put a tour director on board so that he or she gives some guidance and some background and some sightseeing information, but also acts as a caregiver is a strong word, but a point of contact while they're on the trip. So that tour director and the driver are working together as a team. You would be amazed. You have people that we're taking to see, the Mississippi River for the first time, and we give them surveys for when they come back. And the first thing they say is, "I loved my tour director and driver." Nothing about what they saw, but that's how important the driver and the tour director are to making a trip succeed. Yeah.
So being third generation, there's a lot of planning, business thought that goes into this. And certainly as a business owner, you're thinking about recession, you're thinking about when, dealing with the ups and downs. Can you talk a little bit about what segment of your enterprise is recession proof?
Thankfully, we do have a piece of our business that is recession proof. I can attest to it because I live it on both sides, and that's the student travel business. What we found is that parents aren't willing to take away these opportunities for their kids, so that when the schools come back and say, "Oh, instead of the price being $50 this year, it's $60, is that okay with you?" Yes, it's okay with us parents. Parents are still letting their children travel long distances. These are special experiences, not only for the student to see places that they may not normally see, but to travel with friends and to have those experiences. So student travel, recession proof, knock on wood.
And you must see certain trends, or the things that are trending that are hot, and some things that are just not that popular anymore?
There are trends. Themed travel is a trend now. So people that are Civil War aficionados are traveling with us on our Civil War themed trips. And one of our tour directors happens to be a Civil War historian. So she directs and gives background information, and we come up with a different itinerary every year that's Civil War themed. We also have a girlfriend's getaway. So we come up with different things to do. We have to kind of reinvent the wheel year after year because, as we say, they're not inventing new states. So we have to invent a reason for people to travel. So theme trips are trending well.
So Atlantic City, obviously, with the casino business, many of the businesses are folding. I'm sure that has impacted your business. Could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you do see within your industry?
Well, the challenges, speaking of Atlantic City, that used to be such a big part of our business back in the 70s. We used to have double our fleet, mostly going down to Atlantic City and back. Now we might have 2 buses a day, if that, going down to Atlantic City, and instead of a couple dollars, it's $30 a person to go to Atlantic City, or you could just drive your car to one of the local casinos. So that really has affected it. Challenges are the transportation infrastructure of our country is really not up to par, and our buses are traveling roads that need repair. They are bridges and tunnels are not equipped in a lot of cases to handle our 45-foot
just the sheer volume of traffic on the roads is enormous.
Absolutely. And what's frustrating is customers are a lot of times using their own handheld devices. Oh, you should be going this way, or you should be going this way. Well,
it's a lot of backseat drivers.
It's a lot of 55 backseat drivers makes it a challenge for the driver, and the driver does their homework in advance as well. But there's sometimes roads that the driver can't take, so our customers don't necessarily know that. So that's definitely a challenge. People are working longer than they've ever worked. They used to retire at a younger age than they are now. So they're not able to take as much vacation as they used to. We know a lot of senior citizens are caring for their grandkids. So they're not able to travel. They're helping out, their daughter and son take care of their own kids.
Demographic shifts.
Definitely demographic shifts as well, yeah.
Are there any benefits to travel by bus? People say, I could just take my car.
I think there's a lot of benefits.
Of course, I hope so.
Other than the obvious, sit back, relax, and let us do the work. I mean, if you haven't seen a bus lately, a motor coach, let's call it, we have cup holders, we have outlets for you to plug in and charge your personal devices, we have DVD and monitors, we have netting, behind the seats, just like the airplanes do, cup holders, so Wi-Fi on the buses, so it's very comfortable to travel on a bus. Those are the obvious things, right? So not so obvious is because we're traveling in groups, we save money, economies of scale, right? So if you have 50 people, we're going to get you a better price than you would normally get on your own, and we can pass that discount along to you. Things that you might not be able to do on your own, private guided tours, getting into a restaurant that you might not normally get into, those are the kind of things that we're able to provide that customers can't get. How about door-to-door service? When you go to a restaurant or an attraction, you often see a bus pulled right up while you're hiking from your car parked far away. Well, that's something that we can offer you as well, door-to-door service.
So Sandy, you might have answered this a little bit, but my question is, when somebody is deciding on a bus, if they're planning a trip, what would make you distinct, your organization versus others? What would they need to think about?
Well, they should think about the safety rating of the company that they're looking. Are you asking a motor coach vacation versus
Correct.
A motor coach
Yes.
vacation?
Mm-hmm.
You definitely want to look at the company. You want to look at the age of the company, the safety ratings and reviews of the company. You want to be comfortable with your travel advisor that you're making plans with, because it's important to know what you're buying and what you're going to get. Listen, first timers, there's a lot of education that we need to pass along to first-time bus travelers. You are traveling as a group, so we are going to give you some time constraints. Please be back at a certain time. You're not traveling as an individual. We're going to take care of you, and that is another benefit. But it's important to understand that the benefits are you meet people, and you can have dinner with somebody different every night, and you have different experiences that you would normally have if you traveled alone or with a friend or with a spouse. But it is important to explain what to expect. So comfort with your travel advisor, know where you're going, know what to expect, a little bit about the schedule, how we pick up and drop off people. So it's comfort, just like you would, before you spend money on any kind of vacation. You're doing all the research now online, right? You can still do that same research, not only about the company, but for example, on our website, we list all of the hotels and attractions. If you want, you can go ahead and check those out as well to make sure that, this is a hotel that you're comfortable, that you would be comfortable staying in. So do your homework, basically.
How do you try to differentiate yourself in the marketplace from the other companies?
That's a great question. Customer service is big with us. Because we're family owned and operated, we really want to pass that feeling along to our customers. You would be surprised. The average tenure of one of our employees, I would say average is about 15 to 20 years, because we treat our employees like family, and we want our guests on our bus trips to be treated like family as well. So that definitely separates us, the customer service we give. Our safety record, the best. We are extremely focused. My dad sits on as a head of the Bus Industry Safety Council safety committee, and he lives safety, breathes safety, and preaches safety day in and day out. And that's really what we want to come across as. Of course, we're going to give you a beautiful bus, and we're going to give you comfortable seats, and a tour director that's knowledgeable, and a driver that's safe. But you have to have all those things together. It just can't be one piece.
Do you have any funny stories to tell us about what happens with some of the groups?
We could write a book. We could write. Our tour directors always say some of the funny stories, and of course they all happen at 3 a.m. But I'll tell you a personal story. So I told you I lived in the Midwest for a little bit, and then lived on the West Coast. So I worked downtown in St. Louis, and I used to take the same route every day home to my apartment. I used to work late, 7:30. One day I wasn't feeling well, and I left at 4:30. And because I left early, I didn't take my normal route home. So sure enough, as I was driving home, a Starr bus crosses my path all the way from Philadelphia, okay? So what does a girl do? I flag him down. So I beeped and beeped, and then they pulled over, and I got out, and I said hello. I was in college, or just after college at the time, so I had grown up a lot. Yeah, but they knew me. They knew me because a lot of the drivers and the tour directors knew my dad, and I had worked there in high school. So I flagged them down. I said hello to everybody, said goodbye. That was great. Except a few days later, I was flying to California for a family event, walking around the town of San Francisco, the city of San Francisco. Sure enough, that same bus crossed my path.
That funny?
Yep. So I ran right across and flagged them down.
You have a pretty wide footprint, it sounds
yes,
like.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that, do you get a lot of repeat customers?
We do, thankfully. The bulk of our business is repeat customers and referrals from our existing customers. So we love when customers go on a trip and then they bring their extended family and their friends. Sometimes they'll go as a couple on a trip, and we like to pass out our catalogs while they're on the trip because they're a captive audience, right? Sure. And they can pick their next trip and talk to the tour director about the different trips. And a lot of times they'll make friends and plan to go on the next trip with somebody sitting across from them or behind them. That's what's just, it's so warm and fuzzy when you get to plan people's vacations for a living and hear how wonderful their trip was. And then when I sometimes go out on tour and meet them, they tell me all these wonderful stories of their memories and who they've met. The
storytelling
awesome.
Must be phenomenal.
Yeah.
The connections that are made.
The connections and the memories, the pictures. Our Facebook page is super active with customers posting pictures while they're on trip. And while they're on tour, and our tour directors send us pictures to post, and we have people commenting, "I'm booked for the next round of Mackinac Island, Michigan." So it's really exciting.
Will we see driverless buses?
Good question. I don't think so anytime soon. My drivers will kill me if I said anything differently, right?
So. What's the website that people can find you at?
Good question. Thank you. www.starrtours.com, and that's Starr with 2 R's.
Okay, I think we're wrapping up. Is there anything else you want to tell people about the company that you didn't share with them?
We would love to have anybody travel with us. Group travel is so much fun. You meet people and you see places that you wouldn't necessarily see on your own, or maybe you've never heard of. So come travel with us.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, please join us next week. Our guest is Frederick Hubler Jr. He's from Creative Capital Wealth Management Group. And as always, your money matters. Thank you.